Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, bad lighting if you're watching on YouTube, and good whenever you are listening. Welcome back to the premier fantasy football podcast known as the Pylon Dons. My name is Ben Weiner. I'm joined by AJ Carrion, same box if you're seeing our mugs on YouTube, because we are some committed individuals. However, while AJ and I are in one box, you see a mystery man in another. He's handsome, he's tall, he's got dark hair, and he is our own league commissioner, Connor Coggins.
I'm glad you took the intro because I definitely would not have done nearly as good of a job. So I'm glad you took the ball on that one, and I'm really glad to have you on the show, Coggins.
Yeah, I really appreciate that very, very appropriate intro for my esteemed position as our league commissioner.
Well, all jokes aside, I mean, AJ and I, we've been Dynasty players for a couple of years now, and Coggins has always been our commissioner. So this is really exciting. This is going to be the first ever podcast that we've done where there will be no player conversation. We are not telling you how bad Clyde Edwards-Helaire is.
Don't speak too soon because you know how we can get off.
It's not in the plan.
All of a sudden, we'll be talking about Elijah Moore's Dynasty stock for 2020.
Bro, I sent out 2 offers for him, and 2 leagues were in this morning. Anyhow, though, we brought Coggins on because while we give him a hard time within our own league, Coggins really is an amazing commissioner. He's been a Dynasty commissioner for multiple years now. And we wanted him to honestly share some knowledge with the good people because this is a committed individual who runs very active leagues, and we think very highly of him. Before we let him speak, we're going to shamelessly plug our own social media. So please follow us at Pylon Dons on Twitter and our personal Twitters at Ben the Pylon Don and at AJ the Pylon Don. And if you want to see more of our faces, check us out on Instagram at the Pylon Dons. So without further ado, Coggins.
AJ. So
I know it's great.
Well, what kind of questions do you have for me?
So you've been a commissioner for our league for 3 years. And the first thing I want to talk to you about, and it's definitely something that we've had be on the docket and at the forefront of a lot of controversy, is rule changes. So in the Dynasty scene, oftentimes you're going to have leagues hit these crossroads with certain things, whether it be scoring, whether it be seeding, whether it be roster size, free agency, etc. What's been the main way that you choose to approach rule changes, whether you're the one proposing them or whether it's somebody else?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. You know, this is going into my 4th season as our commissioner and my 4th year as a Dynasty player in general. And I think that the best part about Dynasty leagues is how customizable they are and how you can make them fit like exactly what your group of friends or colleagues or league mates is looking for. So I think the important thing to try and remember and act on as a commissioner is that you're an instrument of the league that you play in, and you should be doing what is in the best interest of the league and what the majority want. Now, I'm lucky enough to be in a league that is very active, and you know, our league mates contribute not just their time, but their opinion on how things should be handled. So I don't think you should just be doing what you're seeing on Dynasty Reddit or what your favorite Dynasty podcast is telling you is the correct league settings or point scoring.
Except this podcast. We have you on right now,
podcast,
so people listening to this. So with that exception, but continue though, because great points.
So I think that the best tool a commissioner has in his arsenal is a poll. And I think it's as simple as it sounds and that it should be used more often. People often turn to outside sources when I think really most of the solutions to league questions can be handled internally. And I think that it serves twofold. You know, it shows you what the league wants. And then the important part to the commissioner is it gets angry members off your ass because you can just deflect and say, you know, the poll voted for it. It's not my fault. Deal with it.
That's a great segue into our next question. And please spare me a little bit. I mean, tell the people what they got to hear. But if if a disgruntled league member comes to you, how do you usually handle that situation? Because you are responsible for keeping this league up and running. You're kind of managing a friend group and a social circle of sorts as well. So between keeping the integrity of the game, but additionally maintaining those personal relationships, how do you handle disgruntled league members? and
So
me for that matter.
I mean, sometimes it does feel like you're a parent with toddlers and you're dealing with these like nonsense made up issues. And
That's all the other disgruntled people in our league. That's not me.
Yeah, that's not for Ben. Ben has never once sounded like a toddler to me. But sometimes you just need to remember when people are bickering or being jerks that you just need to take a step back, and they're only doing this because you care. And the way I think about it is I would rather have 12 owners who are constantly at each other's throats, fighting, bickering about rule changes than 12 owners that just don't care. You know, I'd rather see those 12 helmets pop up on a sleeper trade immediately after it processes than, you know, look and see that somebody hasn't been active in the league in days or weeks, you know, hasn't set their game time lineups, you know. So I think that it's important to just remember that this is a balance. You know, we play this game for fun. Like
we do believe it or not, it is for fun. That's what they say.
Sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Like when your receiver drops a ball that would have won you a championship and you scream at your TV and embarrass yourself in front of your friends, family, and little siblings. It doesn't feel like you do this for fun, because what kind of sadist would do this for fun? But, you know, we are all here because we do this for fun.
Yeah. And that's the thing is when people are bickering like that, or when people are really getting vocal, it's because they care. And being a commissioner, it's really important to remember, oh, they care. That's a good thing. Even though it may be difficult to deal with at times, it is a good thing. Speaking of people getting disgruntled, and
this is a really important conversation topic.
Vetoes. So as a commissioner, obviously in the league name, the Fantasy Vetoers.
That is our league name, and it is for an
extremely fitting reason.
Yes.
But I think the issue has kind of waned off as we've all become more experienced. But regardless, when it comes to vetoes, how do you attack that as an unbiased? You almost have to act like a third party, even though you are an active team in the league. How do you balance doing that?
So, you know, like vetoes are a hot button topic in dynasty leagues. Like you have your two entrenched camps of like no vetoes, they're necessary evil. Personally, I think they're a necessary evil, especially in leagues where there's a lot of first-time dynasty players. In our league, we temporarily removed vetoes, and
we have some follow-up questions about that later. But stay on topic now.
The
We're
worst
getting to
trade
that
in league history, and probably one of the worst trades in the history of any dynasty league ever.
We have a whole question about this. Don't you worry.
So, you know, I think that it's hard for anyone to look at a trade and not immediately think, what does this mean for me? Is that a player that I wanted that I can no longer get? Is that a team that's now better than mine and there's nothing I can do about it? And I think our best solution that we've found is just required such a majority of votes that when you see those deals that you just know are horrible, then the majority will vote to remove it. But for those deals where, you know, somebody just wins, because that happens in almost every deal, there's a winner, then they go through. So our rule is it requires a super majority of non-participants. And I'd say, you know, as time has progressed, we've used it less and less and less. And I think that the more experienced the league is, the less the veto is needed, especially in leagues where you don't really worry about anyone quitting. Like I don't have concerns about anyone in our league quitting because they lost a trade so badly that their team stunk.
I mean, maybe after I just absolutely
concern.
win the league next year, coming back from my tank, like maybe that'll change because, you know.
All right,
but,
all right. Put the track spikes away. It's way too early to victory lap. It is February 1st for those of you.
Yeah, as our resident loser, Sacco.
Yeah,
hey, on purpose, Sacco, mind you. I tore the whole thing down.
You better hope 101 was worth it, man, because the league is cooking up a punishment and it'll definitely be broadcasted. Again, shameless plug on the pylon.
Absolutely.
I am on the Instagram because it will be all over that.
Believe it or not, our goal actually isn't to be fantasy football analysts. This is actually just a stepping stone for me because I want to be the next fourth Impractical Joker. So this has all just been a really messed
You're going to take Joe's spot?
My fantasy punishment. I'm going to take Joe's spot. Yeah, you can network. You're a good writer. So that's been the plan there. Oh, where were we? We do get off topic.
We were talking about commissioners. So
True.
In your opinion, we've obviously talked about some of the struggles of being a commissioner. What's your favorite part about being the commissioner of a dynasty fantasy football league?
I think it's the fact that you're kind of always involved in everything that happens in the league. You know, you have you're kind of expected to be the problem solver for a lot of these things. Like you're expected to mediate, you're expected to kind of be available. And I like that aspect of it. I like being available to everyone. I think it's a great way to stay in touch with your league on an even deeper level. When you're the commissioner, you talk to people more frequently about all sorts of different things. And I think that that's definitely my favorite part. I mean, I'm a natural problem solver, so I kind of enjoy that aspect, but
And
it's
problem
more so the
causer,
fact
but
that you stay in touch with everyone at a higher degree.
that's a really good thing. And I do need to say, trust me, you and I probably text all the time. Like, what do you mean we're adding a flex? Or how dare you veto my trade? So we're definitely
That
in
was the
touch.
most recent. We had our league owner meeting, very reminiscent of our attempt to be the NFL.
Yeah.
And that was fun. That was an interesting experience. Lots of polls, lots of bickering. But
Would you recommend a league owner meeting to dynasty commissioners around the community? Just, do you think that every league should have a Zoom call with that sort of discussion, or in person if they could, just yearly to hash out rules?
I think that your first step when you're setting up a dynasty league, actually, it sounds nerdy, but you should go and set up some basis of a bylaws so that you can kind of have some degree of rules that you look to, where it doesn't always feel like the commissioner is making executive decisions on everything. I think it can also prevent a lot of what we were going through in terms of, repeat votes, where if you lost a vote, you just waited a couple weeks and then you spent those couple weeks yelling at people and trying to convince them to join your side. Our current rules are set up in a way where you get one rule vote a year, so we voted to remove kickers. No one can vote to add kickers again.
This was before the Evan McPherson explosion, for everyone listening. They're totally coming back.
He's coming back.
Kickers in the flex spot. It's happening.
So that's an issue that I can proudly say we won't be dealing with until 2023.
Yeah.
It's coming though.
I'm sure it is.
And speaking of a removal, just a segue here. Unfortunately, as we know, this is a part of just a part of the game. In the past, if there was a league member who, for one reason or another, the group decided couldn't partake in the league, how would you recommend people handle that? Because how we were talking about earlier, how not only is it your responsibility to keep the game and keep the game's integrity, but it's also an interpersonal social aspect as well. So I know you have experience with this. We don't need to go give any names, but how would you recommend handling a situation like this?
So we have had the misfortune of having to do this. This is one of the downsides of being in a hyperactive league. Everybody has to buy in or it won't work. So I think that personnel changes in terms of changing league owners should be the absolute last result. This shouldn't be something if you're a year, 2 years in, it probably shouldn't have happened yet. If you're 5 years in, it shouldn't have happened more than once. If you are regularly removing people, then their issue isn't with the owners, it's with the way the league's constructed. So, first and foremost, these leagues are meant to be fun. And I think for the majority of leagues, they're between friends. And, the last thing you want is a fantasy league filled with all this to come between real life friendships,
That's
so
what we are real life friends at the end of the day. You two are two of my best friends, and that's mutual around the Zoom call.
Our league is made up of all our college friends. Our divisions are named after the bars in our college town. So I think that you have to remember that this is secondary to these real friendships that you've developed. But that also doesn't mean that you should never use it, because we had an issue where, lineups weren't being set. Trades were being sent through that made no sense.
What trade got sent through? Because I did promise you that you get to say this on air.
So the worst trade during our temporary period of no vetoes, I actually wrote this down because I wanted to be 100% confident in what the trade was. It was Henry Ruggs. So you know how that turned out. Keyshawn Vaughn. You know how that one turned out.
Who somehow could have been worse than Henry Ruggs.
A second round pick. N'Keal Harry. That was one side of the trade. Now, comma. Now this is for Alan Lazard, and this is the real one. Jonathan Taylor. you know, Dynasty RB1, arguably Dynasty asset number 1. A guy who will probably be a top 5 running back for the next half decade. And he was sent for a guy in jail, a guy who is a third or fourth string running back, a second round.
Vaughn would be really valuable in points per water bottles filled up leagues. He'd be really good there.
And N'Keal Harry would dominate points per drop pass leagues too.
Wait, no, but or like, I don't know, like if they like had like a spot in the lineup for wide receivers who should be fullbacks, like, or like should be in the CFL, like that works too.
Yeah, as our resident Patriots fan and N'Keal Harry owner, he has burned me year over year over year, and he still sits on my bench to this day because what if?
Wait, actually, this conversation, because we were talking before the show, we had a couple things we definitely want to discuss, but yielded greater conversation. Looking at this right now, because this trade was made very briefly after the rookie draft, when, like, for clarification, no one in their right mind traded Jonathan Taylor for Keyshawn Vaughn with any like real knowledge as to what was going on, like outside of their.
To put it in perspective, Marlon Mack was still healthy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had just been taken over Jonathan Taylor.
This was a whole pandemic ago. Like, this really was a while. Would you ever like entertain a rule similar to like how in like the NBA, how you can't immediately trade rookies? Like, would you entertain a hypothetical rule like, oh, like you need to wait like until like week 6 to trade rookies on your roster for the benefit of the owners?
So
hypothetically, shoot this down if you hate it. This just came to mind.
I think that, you know, you need to have regulations to some degree in the trade market. But as, you know, more of a free market person, I don't think we should be throwing the training wheels on these people entirely. You know, you kind of have to let people make the decisions, because that's what we like. Dynasty leagues in particular, you know, redraft leagues, your whole league's based around your draft. You know, your whole season's based around how well you drafted. Trades don't happen that much. Planting your flag is a much less impactful part of the game. But dynasty leagues are made for the gut calls. You know, they're for trading up to the 103 in a startup because you think that there's a small percentage chance a guy you really want is going to be sitting there. And you know,
can flex on it. You can
yeah, like when I traded up from 106 to 103 and got Christian McCaffrey from our resident Pylon Don over here. I think there are times.
Wait, AJ, who'd you get?
I took Odell Beckham Jr. and I really swore I won the draft at that trade. And I was so convinced. And
yeah, to be fair, this was before CMC's 1,000 season.
To Cleveland, Baker had just finished his rookie year super strong. I was kind of starting to get into fantasy football Twitter, and people were like, Odell and Baker is going to be like,
this was
I can't fault you too much because I took Baker Mayfield. I overdrafted him in that startup as well. So we all have our misses.
I'll put it this way. We walked out of the first round and like everyone thought AJ did well in the trade.
Yeah,
and the logic was there.
Absolutely. Well, trading down is generally a great way to create value for yourself. But Coggins, you actually said something though, in response to my question that I want to touch upon, because you said that there can't be too many regulations. Can you talk about a couple regulations that you have pushed to be implemented and why? Because you're clearly passionate about them.
So we had a bunch of first-time dynasty players. You know, our most experienced league mates were two twins who had played for like a year or two before.
2 champions now, underratedly.
Yeah. They had the experience, you know, asterisk rings. You know, they were kind of
but we won't get into that.
He beat me fair and square. No one would have called it a Mickey Mouse ring if I had won. So I'll hail. He won.
As the first year champion, the only real champion, I would have absolutely called your ring a Mickey Mouse ring too. But so we didn't really understand the importance of draft picks. You know, people were selling. You know how sleeper you can only go a certain amount of years ahead, and the picks show up one day just arbitrarily after the draft. As soon as the day came when the picks were available in sleeper, people were sending them off with no regard for, you know, 2024.
This is totally true. Like some of these trades are like too bad to even post on Twitter because they weren't made with like actual knowledge. This was
like nobody really understood, like especially me. I sold out.
Or throwing in firsts like as like sweeteners that should have been like centerpieces to deals because we weren't really aware of what rookie.
Yeah, I mean we're on year 3. This will be our third draft.
Going into year 4
rookie
now.
Draft.
Yeah.
So including
This
the
is
startup, we'll be going into year 4.
Yeah, so this is our third rookie draft, and we are having our first 101 be the team that actually finished last.
Yeah.
So,
And it's been a
that was part of our problem.
And funny enough, that trade to get my pick back almost got vetoed. And I'm happy it did it because I said I was going to tear it down and get the 101. And you know what? I did win that trade.
That right there is the perfect example. Ben, who knew he was tanking, had to go out and get his first round pick back because he had traded it so long ago. So to circle back to what like brought us to this train of thought.
Wait, that trade was so bad. We actually just swapped picks out of like a bet. Like it was literally like a body measuring contest, if you will.
So the rule we instituted was we just copied the NBA. You know, the Celtics killed the Nets in that terrible trade where they sent off like 20 straight first round picks. So the NBA instituted a rule where you have to have a first round pick at least once every other year. So we also just copied them and we said, if it works for the NBA, it probably will work for us. And I think, you know, we set it up where it was years down the road. Like we voted on this like last summer and it doesn't even take effect until next summer. So the rule now is out of any 2 years, you have to draft in the first round at least once. You know, you can trade that, but you can't trade it until draft night. You can't trade it until you're on the clock.
And you can trade. It doesn't have to be your one every 2 years. No. It can be a one. So you're allowed to trade.
So you can do that. But we also got rid of, we don't let people do conditional swaps. So you know how you can like trade the rights to swap picks in like the NFL or the NBA, whatever league it is.
A league mate of ours and I did that in the first year, and it got really murky because
I forgot about that.
We weren't really familiar with like how to like keep track of all this stuff since we were all pretty new to it. So like looking back, we were like, wait, conditions to do what? And like had to circle back. It's just, it throws too much variability into it and too much confusion. So we just removed it.
Without the tools set up in Sleeper to do it, it doesn't make any sense. Like our league's so active and so much changes hands that the pick had already been traded again.
Yeah.
So then when time came to collect and swap picks, you were swapping with someone who traded for the pick without knowing that that pick was conditionally being swapped for a worse pick. So
exactly.
There's no real infrastructure in the app, so it just didn't make sense for us.
Absolutely. Moving on with a couple more questions. Do you feel like you've gained any life skills from being a commissioner? And additionally, would you urge others who are interested in being a commissioner to do so for a Dynasty League?
So I definitely think if it's something you're passionate about, like if you really enjoy that 24/7 lifestyle, that you should do it.
If you're listening to this podcast, you probably do enjoy that 24/7 lifestyle.
Exactly. Yeah,
especially in February. If you're listening to this podcast right now, he means you.
If you're tuning into a Dynasty podcast like before the Super Bowl, you probably are the kind of person that would enjoy being a commissioner. I definitely think that being a commissioner in a competitive league leads to life skills, at least in terms of organization and mediation. Like I said earlier, sometimes it does feel like being a parent, but you have to be like, you have to have some degree of organization. I mean, we have a folder on Google Drive that I have that has our bylaws, that has all of our power rankings that I wrote like and dated each year. So it's a cool, walk down memory lane sometimes. But yeah, you definitely have to handle people who are like hot-headed and, especially when you get older, depending on your age, like people make trades drunk, people make trades like when they're intoxicated, and then the next day, like there's fallout, and you have to kind of try and be a third party that just like mediates and tries to find a solution that's like amicable between multiple people. And you also have to do just kind of like what's in the best interest. So you can often be painted as a dictator. Some people might Photoshop your face onto the Soviet Union flag. And
who did that again?
I don't even remember, but it was him. It was Dan. Yeah, that kind of checks out.
Yeah, that plays.
So very great answer, by the way. It definitely takes a level of maturity. I'm the commissioner of a Dynasty League with people who are pretty much completely random to me. And that poses a whole other threat when you're dealing with grown adults that live across the United States from each other, monitoring things that they do, making sure rules are enforced. But in a social circle, it's just an added variable. And that's something you've done very well. So hats off to you. Kind of just to tie it all together, is there any advice for anybody looking to be a commissioner, whether it be redraft or dynasty, that you would provide for them?
Yeah, I'd say don't take anything said in the heat of the moment personal. You know, when a trade gets vetoed or a proposed rule change is voted down, like people are going to be upset, and you're kind of the face of what makes them upset. So you just have to let that go and remember that this is something we do for fun. And, you know, to circle back to what we were talking about earlier, just like what makes Dynasty so great is the customization of the league. So don't be afraid to like break the status quo on league settings if it makes you and your league mates experience more enjoyable. You know, not all leagues have to be cutthroat like the Fantasy Vetoers. Like some should just be for fun, and that really is okay.
Yeah.
I also think it's important, you know, like the hardest part of being the commissioner is the time. You know, people expect you to be available to discuss league rules, trades, or mediate pretty much at all times in season. And, you know, in our league, like in the off season as well. So, you know, as a full-time law student, like it is somewhat hard to balance the want to be available and the need to be productive in your real life. So I think it's important for people to, you know, don't take things personally, do what's most fun for you, and set up like a healthy fantasy to real life balance.
Absolutely. As we're coming up on time, I think AJ, I think we can agree this has been awesome, and thank you so much for coming. Coggins is our first friend we've ever had on the podcast, and I'm doing this totally without asking AJ. So if you're looking on the YouTube video, you just saw AJ look at me. Coggins, in exchange for your time, one take for the people right now. 2022 Dynasty, go.
And
one take.
Higgins related.
one take right now. AJ and I will comment
Higgins,
on it. What do you
got? Higgins truther. I would bet, you know, way too much money that he finishes top 14 next year. Probably 14. Top 12.
Wait, that was top 14.
I'll plant the flag. You know, you call me out on the show, like you bring me up, you blindside me with the question.
Hey, it's not a blindside. This is a reward. This is you getting
Higgins is finishing top 12 in 2022.
Totally within the realm of possibilities. If Mike Evans and Chris Godwin could do it, why not Jamar Chase and T?
Well, I think, you know, Zach Taylor, he's a LA Rams boy. He's a McVay boy. If Woods and Kupp can do it with Goff, I don't see how Chase and Higgins can't do it with Burrow.
How funny would Jared Goff be if he tried to look as drippy as Joe Burrow, but everyone just kind of knew that he sucked?
Hey, he did okay with what he had this year.
You know, McVay sunk him. You know, he got them to a Super Bowl. He was an MVP candidate. He outdueled Mahomes on prime time.
That's still I watched that regular season game the other day, like just for fun. I was thinking, like, what are some of the best games? I watched like Mike Vick, 6 touchdowns on the Eagles versus the Redskins. I watched the 28-3 comeback. As painful as that was, it is the best game ever. I just like spent hours, and I came across that one, and I was like, oh my goodness.
It's like hard to
offensive firepower. I was like, Jared Goff looks like Peyton Manning out here.
Do you ever wonder what Sean McVay could do with like us hypothetically in like an NFL offense? He has like everyone on the field. I feel like Sean McVay could probably get you like 3 yards of carry, AJ. Like behind the right O line, like he'd call like the
if you want
jet sweep, the pitch to Cooper Kupp, who then hands off the RPO to AJ.
But yeah, I mean, everybody thought he was an MVP candidate. So
yeah.
If Goff can do it with Kupp and Woods, Burrow's gonna do it with Higgins and Chase next year.
I like that.
So buy Chase or buy Higgins because everybody's obsessed with Chase, and Higgins still went for like 1,100 yards, and he was hurt.
All right.
Triple C, Commissioner, Connor, Coggins, T. Higgins, top 12. Have fun with your friends. This is about fun. Re-listen to it for all the other advice because I can't recap it on the spot. AJ, any parting shots?
Thank you, Connor, for joining us. Thank you guys for listening. This is definitely a little bit off the beaten path from what we usually do.
We thought it'd be cool. I think it was cool. Really I think this is really good. I'm very satisfied with how this came out in the moment.
You got a little sneak peek into the inner workings of our, honestly, our most committed or the most time committed Dynasty League that all 3 of us are in, I believe.
Yeah, maybe I'll do a solo follow-up about how to be a pain in a commissioner's ass. Like just me. Like I can just
Ben
like make
would
a couple
be
notes.
An expert in that area.
4-hour episode that you can do all by yourself.
12-part series.
I think that's it for today.
Yeah. Well, thank
Coggins.
you guys for having me on. It was
of course.
A pleasure as always.
Thank you so much for coming. We're looking forward to
check
seeing
your
you
inboxes. Soon. I'm sure you'll be disrespected by what I'm going to send
Oh,
you, but
gee, I'm checking
on
right
the
now.
off chance you're not, like, let's make a deal.
All right. And just like that, the 24/7 activity we were talking about is going on strong. My name is AJ.
I'm Ben. Take it easy.